So we're going to talk a little bit about the amulets that are used in the American South, particularly in the African American tradition known as root working, or in some cases, the term hoodoo is used. And to just sort of put this in context, particularly out of the region we're looking at, this is the Memphis, Tennessee region, and Memphis is very special to the practices of hoodoo, there was a extremely large and still is a population of practitioners, and we see that hoodoo itself actually derived from African traditions of religion and healing. And as the practices were brought with those that were taken from their home and placed on plantations in the American South, these traditions also transferred as well. And so we hear the term hoodoo or root work used, and we actually in this see a focus on the use of roots, not only as a biological healer or amulet, but also as a spiritual energy. Each root is said to have a particular energy associated with it. And on these plantations, you would hear of traditional healers being referred to as the healer of the sick, the interpreter of the unknown, and the comforter of the sorrowing. And lastly, the supernatural avenger of wrong. And so we would see throughout the American South the use of one primary amulet we're going to discuss today, and that is the mojo bag. Now, a lot of researchers have drawn correlations between the Congo use of the figures known as Minkisi and the Minkisi objects in the Congo culture are these material artifacts that are imbued with spiritual power. And we're going to see the parallels between these and the contemporary mojo bag. Historically, our earliest examples we find in Memphis, Tennessee history go back as far as 1871. Some of the earliest mojo bags are said to have contained materials such as rabbit and raccoon feet, a lodestone, needles, dried herbs, and the beak of a bird. And you will hear mojo bags in the American South referred to as mojo hands, conjure bags, and in some cases, they'll use the term Toby. So, in compiling these mojo bags, typically there's a little bit of criteria associated with this. Uh, the use of a mojo bag by an individual may be prescribed by a root worker, by a spiritual worker who says, maybe you need protection or maybe you need something for healing. But it's not primarily created by these traditional healers. It can be self-motivated. You can build your own. You don't necessarily have to go to a ritual specialist. And the first thing you want to do with the mojo bag that we see is to choose your intent. Primarily we see these bags used for protection. We see them used in matters of love. We see them used in matters of luck to draw in luck or success in daily activities. There's a gathering of the materials, and then there's an activating. We see activating happen in a number of manners. Some mojo bags are created, and the creator actually spits into the bag to add their essence to that bag. So there's an activation that occurs, much like in the Congo with the traditional healer, the Nganga, who may take a piece of material and infuse it with their spiritual essence. And there's specific criteria associated with how you carry it. Most mojo bags are kept close to the body and they're kept tucked away from public eyes. Just to show you a couple of examples of uh, mojo bags that have been found throughout the history in the mid-southern United States in some of these different areas, and the different components that we have seen through the years in these bags. We've seen the use of lodestone, and the principle with lodestone is that because it is magnetic, that it will draw in what you're seeking. If you're seeking financial success, it will draw in that success. We also see some early mojo bags, and we don't see this today as much, but the use of human bones, in some cases, a lock of hair. That lock of hair may be used to connect the creator of the amulet with the spirit in that particular amulet. We see different zoological specimens placed inside, whether it be pieces of lizards or whether it be pieces of birds and different animals that have specific properties that the bag is said to attain. This is a early newspaper article out of the state of Arkansas, which borders uh, Tennessee and Memphis, Tennessee. And this particular bag, during the early 1900s, there was a great fear in the American South of root workers. And in fact, there would be police raids on spiritual workers in areas like Memphis and in states like Arkansas. And the word voodoo was used a lot to um, uh, sort of label the practices of African traditions. And it was not used in a very kind way. It was used as an insult, that this was something that was perhaps demonic or malevolent. And so you would see articles in papers where there would be arrest of someone with a quote voodoo bag. I have the uh, unique opportunity to work on Beale Street in Memphis, which Beale Street is sort of known as being the central area for hoodoo in the Memphis, Tennessee area. And for years, a number of spiritual workers lived on Beale Street and operated on Beale Street. And this is the business that I work for. It's over 130 years old, and at one time, we carried and still do carry some spiritual supplies, but these are roots that are used in the creation of mojo bags. And we typically see a number of common elements in these mojo bags. This is Dr. Lyncha Johnson, just to give you an idea of how many of these materials were prescribed. Dr. Lyncha Johnson was a root doctor that lived on Beale Street in Memphis. And as you can see from some of his early advertisements, he would advertise not only specific health benefits, but he would also speak of aspects relating to spirituality. And so we would see this sort of coming together of the biological and the spiritual. These are some of Dr. Johnson's roots that he had used in mojo bags in the creation of different herbal remedies. So, in preparing a mojo bag, one of the first things that the operator would do would be to choose the color of their bag. Now, the most prolific color is red. Red is vibrant. Red is life. Red is blood. But you may also see mojo bags using bags, say, that are colored black for protection, or green to bring about financial or even fertility related needs. And there is a personal contact with the bag that the operator has. Many times the bags are blessed or put into motion, if you will, spiritually, by blowing tobacco smoke or utilizing incense and waving that bag through the incense in order to activate it. In many cases, you'll see a dressing of the bag, and we're going to look at how a particular bag is dressed. and then the feeding of the bag. Now, with the dressing of the bag, you'll see many times different herbal oils that are used to coat the bag, to coat some of the objects inside of the bag. And then there's a feeding of the bag, because the concept is that there is a spirit living inside that bag, so that spirit has to be fed. Some of the common liquid materials that are used in feeding a bag. Um, Out of the state of Louisiana, there is a very famous herbal oil known as the Van oil, and this is very popular with Southern mojo bags. Many mojo bags are given whiskey. They're given alcohol to give to that particular spirit. And out of the Memphis area, there was a very famous cologne that is still being made, but it's no longer being made in Memphis, Tennessee. And that is the Hoyt's cologne. And Hoyt's is notoriously known for having a property that gamblers could sprinkle Hoyt's on their hands and then gamble, and this would attract luck. And so that same principle goes into using that with the mojo bag. This is a root worker and her bottle of Hoyt's cologne that she used to draw financial success. And the thing with the mojo bags is these are living artifacts. They're still with us. They're still being used today. This is a bishop who is blessing his lodestones and herbs before they go in the mojo bag, and he's spraying a particular oil on those materials that'll go in the bag. And many times you'll find these different oils used to almost as in boosting the signal of a radio transmission. When you add these different oils to these materials, let's say you add an oil that is specifically focused on bringing about love, perhaps working using a oil related to Venus. And so this oil, once added to these materials, sort of boosts or amplifies the spiritual energy inside the mojo bag. There's some behaviors that are associated with utilizing the mojo bag. Um, Once I began working in one of the shops that offered a lot of spiritual supplies to root workers, one of the things that we noticed is there would be root workers that would come in, and if they asked for a specific item, whether it be an oil or a particular powder that's used, and you would go to hand them the oil or the powder, many times they would say no, and they would touch it themselves. And the belief is that they wanted to have their energies associated with that particular material, not someone else's. There's also, again, a behavior of associating the bag, keeping it close to your body. And then lastly, not allowing others to touch the bag, because it is a living receptacle of this particular spirit. One more amulet I want to mention in the that's very unique to Memphis, Tennessee, is a amulet known as the nation sack. And the nation sack we find mentioned as early as 1948 in the Mississippi Delta. The nation sack is said to be primarily for females, and that it is worn around the waist. There are different variations of the components found in the nation sack, different roots, different dried herbs, tobacco snuff boxes are placed in them. We've found examples with eggs placed in them. And there are different variations of how these operate in just about every instance. The bag was kept under clothing, many times tied around the waist, and kept secretive. And there's some variations of operations associated with this. In some cases, there will be money, there'll be currency placed in the nation sack that has urine that has been placed on that, and this is to control a male in the person's life. It's also used to restrict sexual activity. If the practitioner wants to restrict how someone is being romantic, they would be able to tie this up spiritually. And we found that there are a lot of connections to African women's societies that utilized similar bags as the nation sack.